Greetings from across on everyone. We are in the backyard again, except this time on a tripod for my smartphone, the mini tripod on the table outdoors in the backyard, and I'm on the seat just sitting down. So what we're going to talk about today is what I'm writing in my gratitude notes in journal entry, or entries, or in this case just one entry and one gratitude note list. And yeah, we're going to include a bonus, which is anti-brevity, if we get to it. Otherwise, we'll wait for another video, but other than that, we can get started. This is going to be quite a bit of reading, because not only will I just read the whole thing, or at least parts of it, whether it's personal or not. I don't think it's too personal, but just if it happens to be too much for you guys, you have to pay attention. But just know that I'll be reading at least 1 or 2 pages at max, and then I'm going to maybe elaborate more on those details even more so. So, you know, that's all. But yeah, so yeah, first is gratitude notes. So these 3 bullets I got under gratitude notes are icebreakers, leap of faith, and strangely specific. So if I had to find the icebreaker in the list I have right now, because what I usually do is I write in a book called a steno book, and that means there's 2 layers of pages like it could be. So within the same page, there's like 2 listings, and I usually I started dividing one half of it for gratitude notes and the other half of the journal entries, and this time I did a whole page for each one. So, you know, but yeah, to locate the icebreaker right away from the list, I'd say it's when I write down my nofap streak, or whenever I'm doing well recovering from PMO, or my other addictions, not just pornography, but other addictions. And so, like right here, I wrote, I am grateful for nofap easy mode day 6 and day 1.5 of hard mode, which is technically true, because I have been going off of the retention route, not on the retention route after I absolved in the last partial relapse. So that's actually what happened. But you know, yeah, that is something I am grateful for, and it's technically the easiest thing to be grateful for, because you know that nofap is something I'm grateful for either way, even if it's not something I'm making a complete decision on at the moment. But hopefully we eventually get to that point. So, you know, but yeah, I just that's one icebreaker I could point out. Another icebreaker is something I constantly write in these. It wouldn't have to be things, simple things like that, but you know, things that could be consistent enough. But you know, I think another thing that'd be an icebreaker would be like this one, like I am grateful for steering my life based on my frequency and not what it seems it should be like. That can also count as a leap of faith, because leap of faith is more like if I am grateful for something before I realize I'm truly grateful for it. So I'm risking the idea that if I'm too stubborn or too lackluster on the idea of liking something enough to care about what it's actually doing for me and not against me. But you know, it could either be that, or if I actually had a trifle and a troubling with something that I was grateful for. Not just if I wanted to be grateful for it, but if I knew what it really meant to me, and why it was causing a bit of a good sombering, a good positive sombering, if that makes sense. I can discuss that later if I need to, but you know. But yeah, just that's getting to the next thing, which is leap of faith. So icebreakers is just if anything that can be consistent enough to be mentioned, but still underrated but reckoning in a sense. So yeah, leap of faith is whenever, again, it's something that you happened for me in this case. It happens to be something that I have to be grateful for before I realize I'm truly grateful for it. And if that means anything slightly negative, it should also mean that it's actually something to give a chance to know that you can be grateful for it. Because I mentioned before, I think a little bit, that I can advocate the ideas and promote them before I even believe or agree with them. And that's a very insightful thing I approach sometimes, even if it's not seemingly logical. But you know, but with like leap of faith, it's like you just you try things that you try to be grateful for things that you don't necessarily agree with or know in the best light. But that's technically why it should be a little more intermediate, if not harder. But that's also the good way to be grateful too. That's a very worthy way to be grateful, and that's always a very worthy exercise practice. So you know, and we got strangely specific, which is when we like over here. I got 2 examples for strangely specific. I made just in time for this to prepare for it. I got. And hopefully I word this out right, because I want you to know that I'm doing this in a positive way. So these 2 notes are specific, and if it sounds like something's off, I'm sorry, but that's just how I'm writing it. Because this is how, especially when I get into the journaling, it'll be weird, even weirder than this. Because I practicing with gratitude notes was something I was able to do without worrying too much about the grammar or cohesion. But the journaling was even more tricky than that. So you know, yeah, what we got here is I am grateful for George Floyd's redemption and justice being met, in the sense that it was the guy who got him killed, got justice against him. I meant it in that way. I didn't mean it like, oh, you don't believe in George Floyd. No, I do. I just this is the way I'm wording it. It sounds really concerning, but it's actually I am on his side. I'm grateful that happened the way it did. That justice was met against the killer and not for him. And that's my opinion, though. I make politics videos every once in a while, but especially for things like agorism and libertarianism. But that's at least on our Scarf channel. But if you guys, I can also post on across every once in a while. I did before the re-upload, so that's with politics, but. But with this world event, it was worthy of a specific, strangely specific gratitude note, because I feel like that's something that not just other people were grateful for. Even I can be grateful for it. Even if it's not too relevant to me, it's still my world. So I'm grateful for that already. That world event got resolved in a good way. So, and I also got I'm grateful that COVID-19 is not too much to handle lately, because the post-COVID era might be coming sooner than we think. The idea that we don't have to worry too much about a world pandemic that was significant and reckoning in a very concerning way. It did not happen in the worst possible way, but it was still very dangerous and alarming. It wasn't so much that it was a catastrophe, but it was very, very bad. Even then, it was like there's different ways to measure this and different opinions, I guess. But just trying to say that. But that being said, I am grateful that it got to the way it did, the way that coronavirus got more and more handled well, even as saddening as already it has been for months. But it's been handled better with the vaccines and the access to our world, but more and more so connecting once again. So it'll be interesting to see what post-COVID era, if not later, would mean for us if it was actually sooner than later. But yeah, those are the two specific examples, strangely, if anything. And yeah, if you want me, I could just read the whole list. The gratitude notes aren't particularly personal, but depending on how you depict them, I could read the whole thing real quick and then go on to journal entry. So here we go. I am grateful for doing videos more frequently without being too obligatory about quality, as mentioned earlier on in the 4 things video. You guys may have seen that before. I am grateful for steering my life based on my frequency and not what it seems it should be like. We saw before. These are the ones I asked into earlier. So. And I'm grateful for being seen as the opposite of what I am or are doing. Now, this is a little weird one. It's like these next few ones are gonna sound weird, like as if I'm being contrary. No, I'm just trying to be grateful for things that I may not understand. That's also the faith. So yeah, I am grateful for being misunderstood. Again, controversial, but it's also something I actually am grateful for in a way that's still trying to be positive and hopefully can be understood that way. So hopefully, yeah. And I am finally grateful for NoFap Easy Mode Day 6 and Day 1.5 Hard Mode. You ever heard that? So. I am grateful for George Floyd's redemption and justice being met. Heard that before. I am grateful that COVID-19 is not too much to handle lately. Already mentioned. Okay. I am grateful within reach is every social group. Okay, hold on, like that's okay. I am grateful within reach is every social group and connection I've managed to attain and hold dearly. I think that speaks for itself a little bit. I can explain it later if I need to, but yeah. It's I mentioned this in different kind of factions of how I heard this and how I realized I could be grateful for it. And I am grateful for my socializations and relationships all alike, so in any forms that they come by. The ways I connect with people, not isolate myself too much, whether on accident or on purpose. And hopefully that doesn't mean too much of anything in the worst way. Hopefully not too much in a negative way, at least. But yeah, I'm grateful for handfuls of female attraction during addiction recovery. I don't mean that in the shallow way. I mean that more in the, I'm grateful for that particularly. I'm not too lost of anything, for that matter. Even if I do get immersed into some things in a concerning way, who knows? We'll know for sure. Well, I'm alright, man. And I am grateful for taking on every urge successfully. That should be almost like self-explanatory. It can still be different, but yeah. Now we've gone to journal entry. So now we got under the journal entry, we got 3 bullet points: communication medium, why do I hurt, and authentic attraction. So communication medium, it might take a while to elaborate on this one, but I was the believer that this is kind of like a preface too. I'm part of the belief that we communicate differently based on mediums and not just too similar just because we're the same person. Sometimes people will say that you should be communicating the same way with everything because it'll just be an extension of ascension. I don't see it as more of an ascent. I see it more as a different realm and atmosphere. So unfortunately, people think that I should be. If people think I'm dog doo-doo with writing, I should be. I might as well be dog doo-doo in real life. That's not always the case. So if I speak poorly in real life, at the same time, I might seem like I'm also a bad writer. But you know, you wouldn't know that for sure, especially with my own philosophy. Who knows if that affects it that too much? But yeah, I'm of the belief that we either instinctually or automatically communicate differently based on medium, speaking aloud, writing, etc. And it's like it doesn't have to only be that way, but that's just a schema idea in the frame of things. So you know, and then why do I hurt? It's an idea based on music and poetry, I guess, like in art in general, like creativity. The thing I have the toxic relationship with, including claymations, oops, is like but yeah, why do I hurt comes from like a Zitz comic strip. But there was like literally like one of the characters was mentioning how to write music or poetry, and that was their advice, I think, was how to be inspired to write music and write songwriting. And that's a pretty interesting thing, because if I could do this with even gratitude notes or journaling, that would be pretty interesting. Like, why do I hurt? It doesn't have to be that specific, but you know, like being inspired in that direction from negative to positive, I guess. How to transmute that from negative to positive, if that's necessary. If that's the case, I guess. And yeah, authentic attraction. Being able to know that the things you gravitate towards or things that you gravitate towards you is a good thing, and it doesn't have to only be bad or only be good, but it just the way that it can happen can be transmuted to be a good thing and be seen as a positive thing, even if it was still awkward in that light. I can mention in another video how toxic positivity is a thing, if that's controversial, but you know, authentic attraction, you know, being able to do that. So I'll read this down, and you guys heard at least in one or two other videos how I've been doing with this. These just geometry should be too concerning, other than maybe wondering if I'm overwhelming myself. But I think I tend to say things like I'm passionate about being overwhelmed, even if I don't actually know what that's like. And I tend to also say that I never felt stress or boredom before, even if I'm technically lying about that. For some reason, at least I don't know if that's too true, or too much of a lie either way. But I'll read this entry. And this is not too personal, but it's also kind of like I wonder if I'm taking too much or taking too little. And you'll think it's taking too little if you wonder if it's being too lenient, but you'll wonder if it's taking too much if you think it's too much at a time. So who knows? I'll read it. Here we go. I don't actually doubt I'd be able to hold onto both my grocer and sales agent jobs simultaneously, and I don't even think I'd burn out sooner or later. I can swear this has less to do with recovery from PMO addict ways and more to do with truly being my best self. Even consistent content creation would be possible. My real fear is proving that time and focus tends to be a lame excuse more than anything else. LOL. As for my lifestyle content and near daily videos, 2 to 6 daily was at least a schematic meant for higher velocity errors in my life. 4 per week or more is still a worthy enough ideal I feel would be significantly of overall benefit to my life. Whether or not breaks mattered, discipline does as well. I could still work on claymations a bit here and there too, especially for additional forms of inspiration on a crosswind. Winky smiley face, toothy grin. And yeah, or dot quotations, whatever. Yeah. So yeah, you can already tell that by that through the writing, it's not too bad, and also it's not too concerning how many things I'm doing or how few things I'm doing. You guys are some of you are gonna be more concerned with how much I'm doing, but I think I obviously there's a good exchange between what people know about me and what I know about myself, but you know, it just however interchangeable that happens to be, and that is very much believable. So it just what I'd say about this is that I'm glad it's as unique as I wrote it, and I'm also glad it's actually trying to be open with these things. I feel would be significantly at the three-fourths of the way in, because I was trying to make sure I wrote feely words, as advised earlier in my life for journaling. Because I kept writing too much about the technicals. I had to be more feely and make sure I was immersed with the actual emotive sensualities, if that's not too weird to say like that. But I feel, and I was trying to see if I could think about what I was actually feeling, but it's okay. I tried to make that a little different, but it's okay. I can do it next time if I need to. This still has a bit of emotion here. What's a wall? So, yeah, I can swear. So that's still a bit emotive, but that's a good kind. So, yeah, that's my journal entry. I could elaborate more on that, but basically just It is more of what's too concerning about me doing or not doing. What the heck? Is that complicated? Hopefully not. Maybe it is for a good reason, hopefully. But yeah, journal entry. And then we got a bonus topic here. We could say this for another video, but it's okay if we do it now. So we got the bonus, which is anti-brevity. And the 3 items bullet points we got below are toxic reception, find your people, and world of your own. And so people will, the universal quote is that brevity is the soul of wit, and we tend to know that people who never shut the heck up will be annoying more than anything, if not as useful or not as worthwhile. But that can, by golly, still be up to perception, opinion, and perspective. And that especially people like me who have had the most controversial aspects with things like time, reality, communication, etc. Those things connect more than you think. And even if you think they're not like each other at all, time, communication, reality, and all that, for me, they've been much more relevant, because the way that they interact with how people will assume one thing or another based on how you didn't do something well, and it's actually been much more deeper than that. But with toxic reception, it's more like you don't the people who don't receive, people who talk too little or not at all, or talk too much or endlessly, how that's received. Like, between wanting enough for immersion, I think being able to want to swim in my own words was always a big atmospheric thing that made me comfortable. Whenever I didn't care about comfort for most other things, I was like, I don't care about comfort, and people will hear that and be like, well, then you could care about comfort. Or they'll be even a little bit weirder than that and be like, oh, maybe you did care about comfort, but you didn't know why. And it's like, and even weirder than that is when they didn't misunderstand what I said about that, and it's like, oh, but you can still get comfort. It's like, that's not what I said. And that's a little bit I say irony a lot, and there's a reason why. Many people may not catch up on that, whether I use words properly or how I, not just the grammar or the summarization, but the usage, I guess. People who put a big emphasis on word choice, there's not too much. There are going to be a lot of examples of them being proven right about that, but even then, word choice isn't all there is to it, and I'm a big believer in that part. So it's like, with toxic reception, there are plenty of people who don't receive anti-brevity well, but there are people who want you to be yourself. And even if it's unbearably annoying, it's like, or even truly useless, if that's ever possible, and it has been possible before, but it's like, when you're able to not find value in someone who has too much quantity more than quality. Quality over quantity is not always the case, and sometimes it's not even viable in certain situations, believe it or not. So that's for another video, I guess. But toxic reception, that's just there are people who do not receive anti-brevity well. Finding people who would accept anti-brevity, being able to talk your mind, and maybe hopefully summarize every once in a while if you chose to, even without being forced to or feeling like you're pressured to. But it's like, however that works. And I guess you guys heard me say in earlier videos that "you do you, boo" has pissed me off, that phrase. And the other phrase that makes me pissed off is "just because you can't do everything you should." That pisses me off too. I've already made a whole video about things that made me angry, discuss this, so I know if I've elaborated on that before in that one, but yeah. I think I mentioned in that video, it's outside the editing I did afterwards, but yeah, the video trimming. But finding my people would be really nice. If I haven't already, and I have to some extent found good people, but it's like, but if I found people that were closer and closer and closer, some things in life can truly be perfect. So, not everything can be, but when people are telling you that things in life are impossible to be perfect, they're not talking about everything. They're talking about the sophisticated things. They're talking about the things that shouldn't have to seek perfection to be good, or desirable, or worth it. But the reality that I see is that things can be perfect and literally be perfect. There's a way that they can be, at least for some things, and that's just that's the older sage wisdom you get sometimes. The other sage wisdom is when you don't want things to be perfect or don't have them to be perfect, whether they could be or not. But with finding your people, it's like you can find your people, however close to the perfect or not, or literally perfect or not literally perfect they could be, however weird I make that sound. But you can truly find your people, and whether that's relevant to brevity or not. People who are summarized, or people who don't need to stop talking in order to make a point, and not needing to see that a point needs to be made and brief, or not needing to see that a point can still be made without brief in a good way. And there are reasons to keep talking, even anti-Gettysburg's address Edgar and Lincoln ways, because the Gettysburg address is a good point to make already, that there is beauty to brevity, but there is still even more there's also just as much value to find in anti-brevity. And this is but if you found your people, like for me, if I found people that were anti-brevity, that would be amazing. But I can be grateful for the brevity nonetheless, even in the meantime. whether that had to happen or not, whether that was mandatory or taboo or forbidden or crucial. That's how controversial I'll be in the meantime. So, and world of your own. So an anti-brevity world of my own would be more like a. I don't escape into a world of anti-brevity. I just sometimes even I escape to even a world of brevity, and then the world in my reality would be include things of anti-brevity. So not just brevity in the real world. See, it wouldn't just be, it's interchangeable. That's the best analogy to make. It's like four ways. Like you don't brevity, anti-brevity in both ways, real world or imagined. Not too much of the worst possible fake fantasy, or not even too much of the real world. Too much realism. Jordan Green talks about how too much realism can still be a bad thing, not just too much fantasy. Fantasy can be bad in the obvious universal ways, but too much realism is an underrated way to see it. Too much realism can still be bad, just as bad as fantasy. But but if I can elaborate on that, I would. But yeah. The thing with like us, with people who, I guess I don't have to get too much into like this, but like, when we have a world of our own, we don't have to escape from reality, but we can still see that it's also not limitless. It doesn't have to be endless and limitless either. When we have a world of our own, there's ways to still have brevity with it, but for me, if I had an anti-brevity world of my own, whether it's actually there or not, I'd certainly want to just be visualizational or imaginative about the fact that I could still not escape from every little thing, including what PMO has already done, obviously, like with the nofap and team retention journeys, I guess. However relevant that is, and it really is in a tight way. But when you have a world of your own, and it's not an escape, and it does happen to have anti-brevity, but you use it in a way that's very enlightening. It doesn't have to be the worst or best kind of enlightenment. There's ways that alignment can still be bad, but maybe not even, may again be a sixth or seventh idea for another video, in the same video. But world of my own. I'm sorry if this hasn't made much sense so far, but hence the drone shoot topic earlier in the video. But you have to really think of it in terms that we're not, when there's a beauty and in imagining that you have something that's like for me, a world of my own is an ascent to the real world. It's not so much an escape or fake reality or fantasy. It's an ascent. It can be bigger than that, obviously, but also even when it is just an ascent or better as an ascent, it can be a good way to see the world and reassociate with it. Not even to be blunt and say, oh, if you're not existing in the real world, you're not in the fantasy either. However dead blunt you can be about that, but literally, but it's like, but yeah, being in a world of your own could be like more of an ascent. However, not specific that could be, and if it's more an ascent, but also grateful for being an ascent, and you get attached to the gratitude notes, I guess that's a good way to put it. But grateful for the ascenting and even realizing the ascent could be bigger than its own way. But yeah, your own world can be an ascent, better or worse than that, but ascent is still meant to be a good thing in a very good way. So when you're in your own world, it's an ascent, it's an add-on, an extension of what you can see in the real world. So you can still interchange between the real reality and imagination very well. So there are some bad connotations with imagination. Some people who perceive imagination being good actually do it in a toxic way. That could be another video. It's almost 10 real ideas in one. But the way I perceive that, at least in unique ways. But the way that imagination has been perceived weirdly. But but at least with visualization maybe. But being in a world of your own doesn't have to be a fake fantasy. It doesn't have to be so much of a realism being a bad thing. Realism not always being a bad thing. If that's another perception you can have. But yeah, just that's the bonus anti-brevity. You don't have to always summarize what you say or do or think or feel or spiritualize or act. But you can certainly imagine that it's a beautiful thing to find people who would have to only summarize or only have to speak endlessly. You don't have to say everything you're thinking. That's a bit of understandable wisdom that's out there every once in a while. But you have to say everything that you can say. But you just there is beauty to brevity, but there's a way to find brevity also in anti-brevity. So that's the bonus topic that I went a little longer on for now. So this was what I'm writing in my gratitude notes and journal entry. Gratitude notes was icebreakers, leap of faith, strangely specific. Journal entry was communication medium, why do I hurt an authentic attraction? And the bonus was anti-brevity, which was toxic reception. Find your people in a world of your own. Stay still, everyone, because stop motion is on the move. I don't want to promise too much other content later, whether I make it or not, but there is content I will still continue to make it in the future later regardless. So you'll see that anyways. I'll still make 4 videos per week, if not more, ideally, if not less than that, if not more, but who knows until then. So I'll see you guys later. Thank you.